Welcome to the Ultimate Sports Podcast, Part 1 of the 2019 Stanley Cup Playoff Preview and Predictions, which will be me previewing and predicting the playoffs round by round with my predictions, and I'll close it with my regular season award predictions. Part 2, I'll have ESPN's John Buchacross on to preview and give out his predictions for the first round of the playoffs and go over some off-season storylines. And Part 3, I'm going to have my Twitter buddy Derek Felix on. He has his own blog called The New York Puck, go over his first round predictions, as well as his thoughts on some of the off-season storylines. And we'll do a couple quick hits that have nothing to do with hockey at the end of the show. All right, to my first round predictions. Eastern Conference. 1-seeded Tampa Bay Lightning against your wild card second team Columbus Blue Jackets. The 2018 Lightning are going to go down among the greatest regular season teams ever, but will it translate to when it matters the most? Time will tell. The Blue Jackets are a team that's under some pressure, with their president of hockey ops looking like he's heading to the Big Apple to take the same position with the Rangers, and the coach that might be handed a pink slip. The Bolts are an amazing offensive team led by Nikita Kucherov, Steven Stamkos, and Braden Point. Their defense is very good too, led by Victor Hedman, Ryan McDonough, Mikhail Sergachev, and Braden Coburn. Andrei Vasilevsky is one of the better netminders in the game right now. The Blue Jackets offense is very good, led by Artemi Panarin, Matt Duchene, Pierre-Luc Dubois, Cam Atkinson, and Josh Anderson. The defense is solid, led by Seth Jones and Zach Werenski. Sergei Bobrovsky is somebody in a contract year, but never has had playoff success in his career. That said, the Bolts are the much better team, and I think they win a short series. The prediction, Lightning in 4 games. The best player in this series to me is Nikita Kucherov. The wild card player, Sergei Bobrovsky, for the reasons I just mentioned with him being in the contract year. My bold prediction for this series, Pierre-Luc Dubois leads the Blue Jackets in points for the series. Next up in the Atlantic Division, 2-seeded Boston Bruins versus 3-seeded Toronto Maple Leafs. Second year in a row where these two original 6 teams hook up in the first round. The Bruins are a team that's very deep offensively, led by Brad Marchand, Patrice Bergeron, David Pastrnak, and David Krejci. The defense is solid too, led by Torrey Krug, Charlie McAvoy, and Zdeno Chara. Tuukka Rask has been solid in net after a slow start to the season, and Yaroslav Halak was very good backing him up. The Maple Leafs are loaded offensively with Austin Matthews, John Tavares, Mitch Marner, Nazem Kadri, and William Nylander. Their defense is better with the acquisition of Jake Muzzin to go with Morgan Riley and Jake Gardiner. Frederik Andersen is a good goalie, but has not gotten the job done in the postseason as a member of the Leafs. This should be a great series between these rivals, and these are 2 great coaches too, and I like the better and deeper team, and that is the Bruins. The pick here, Bruins in 7 games. The best player in the series is John Tavares, with honorable mentions to Austin Matthews, Brad Marchand, and Patrice Bergeron. The wild card of the series is Frederik Andersen for the reasons I mentioned with how he would struggle in the postseason as a member of the Leafs. The bold prediction of the series, this series reminisces 2013. Patrice Bergeron overtime winner in Game 7. Next up in the Metropolitan Division, 1-seeded Washington Capitals versus your first wildcard Carolina Hurricanes. The reigning champions go for their title defense against a team that has not made the playoffs in a decade. The Capitals are great offensively, led by Alex Ovechkin, Nicholas Backstrom, Evgeny Kuznetsov, and TJ Oshie. Their defense is deep, led by John Carlson, Dmitry Orlov, and Matt Niskanen. Braden Holtby exercised demons in goal in the Cup run last season after he was benched to start last year's playoffs. The Hurricanes are solid offensively, led by Sebastian Aho, Teuvo Teravainen, Justin Williams, and Michael Ferland. Their defense is good too, led by Dougie Hamilton, Justin Falk, and Jacob Slavin. Peter Mrazek has been solid in goal this season and has had some playoff success with the Red Wings several years ago. That said, the Caps are still the reigning champions, and they have the experience, unlike the Hurricanes, in which should be a fun series to watch. The prediction, Capitals in 6 series. Best player in the series, Alex Ovechkin. The wild card, Peter Mrazek. Bold prediction of the series, Andrei Svechnikov will show immense promise to have severe hope for the Hurricanes going forward. I really like Svechnikov. He was number 2 overall pick in the draft, and I think big things are headed for him. And last but not least, in the East, you have Metro Division 2 seed New York Islanders against the Metro Division 3 seed Pittsburgh Penguins. The Islanders are the biggest surprise of the league this season due to the fact that they lost now former face of the franchise John Tavares in free agency. The Penguins have been up and down throughout the season with a ton of injuries and inconsistent play. The Isles offense is very good, led by Anders Lee, Matthew Barzal, Josh Bailey, and Brock Nelson. The defense has been better than expected, led by Johnny Boychuk, Nick Leddy, and Ryan Pulak. The duo of Thomas Greiss and Robin Leonard has been much better than anyone could have hoped for this season in goal. The Penguins are loaded offensively, led by Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, Jake Kuznetsov, and Phil Kessel. Their defense is solid too, led by Chris Letang, Brian Dumoulin, and Justin Schultz. Matt Murray has the experience in goal and has thrived for the most part. The Pens are the better and more experienced team, and I like them in what should be a competitive series. The pick, Penguins in 6 games. Best player in the series, Sidney Crosby. Wild card, the duo in net for the Islanders, Robin Leonard and Thomas Greiss. Bold prediction, Crosby and Malkin combined for 10 or more goals. To the Western Conference we go. Your number 1 seed in the West, Pacific Division winner, Calgary Flames against your second wild card, Colorado Avalanche. This is a sneaky good series. The Flames are overpowering offensively, led by Johnny Gaudreau, Sean Monahan, Brady Tkachuk, and Elias Lindholm. Their defense is good too, led by Mark Giordano, TJ Brody, and Noah Hannafin. The goaltending duo of Mike Smith and David Rittich is not great or playoff tested, though. The Avalanche are great offensively, led by Nathan McKinnon, Mikko Rantanen, and Gabriel Landeskog. Their defense is sneaky good, led by Tyson Barrie, Samuel Girard, and Eric Johnson. Semyon Varlamov has played in playoff games before, but he was hurt during last year's playoffs and has struggled throughout the season, so there's a chance you see Philip Gaubauer in the postseason for Colorado. So much talent in this series on both sides, but the better team is the Flames, who should win a competitive series thanks to their depth. So the prediction is Flames in 6 games. The best player in the series is Nathan McKinnon. The wild card of the series is somebody who may be joining the Avalanche once his college season's over, and that's Cale Makar, the highly touted defenseman that they picked a few years ago in the draft. Bold prediction of the series, despite winning the series, the Flames' goaltending struggles mightily. Next up, 2 seed in the Pacific Division, the San Jose Sharks against the 3 seed in the Pacific Division, the Vegas Golden Knights. This series was pretty much a given a while back, so these teams weren't playing well heading into the playoffs, pretty much because they knew that this was going to be the case. The Sharks are very good offensively, led by Thomas Hertl, Timo Meier, Logan Couture, Evander Kane, and Joe Pavelski. Their defense is deep too, led by Brent Burns, Erik Karlsson, Mark-Edouard Vlasic, and Brendan Dillon. Mark Jones had a down year this year, but has thrived in the playoffs in the past. The Golden Knights are very good offensively, led by Jonathan Marchessault, William Karlsson, Alex Tuch, and Matt Pacioretty. Their defense is solid too, led by Shea Theodore, Nate Smith, and Colin Miller. Marc-Andre Fleury is back from injury and was solid in the Knights' playoff run a year ago. This should be a good series, but the Sharks are not fully healthy if they have guys recovering from injuries such as Karlsson and Pavelski. So give me the Knights to steal this series. So the prediction, the Golden Knights in 6 games. Best player in the series, Brent Burns. The wild card, Erik Karlsson and his health. The bold prediction of the series, Marc-Andre Fleury will have the best goals against average among goalies in the first round. Next up, your Central Division winner, Nashville Predators, against your first wild card in the West, the Dallas Stars. These 2 teams are familiar with each other, being in the same division, and are both well coached with a ton of big-name players on their respective rosters. The Predators are very good offensively, led by Philip Forsberg, Victor Vriedson, and Ryan Johansson. Their defense is loaded, led by Roman Josi, PK Subban, Ryan Ellis, and Matthias Ekholm. Pekka Rinne is widely known for his regular season success, but playoff struggles, although if he does struggle, UC Saros is one of the better backup goalies in the league and has had some success in playoff play. The Stars are very good offensively, led by Tyler Seguin, Jamie Benn, and Alexander Radulov. The defense is solid, led by John Klingberg and Miro Heiskanen. Ben Bishop has been solid this season in goal, and he'll start in the postseason. But he's been injured a little bit down the stretch. But backup goalie Anton Kudabin has been awesome as well. That said, the better team is the Predators, and they have more depth on their team, and I think they win what will be a short series and a surprising short series. So the pick is Predators in 5 games. The best player in the series is Tyler Seguin. The wild card of this series to me is Matsu Gorella, who's coming off the injury from Dallas. If he produces, then this could be a longer series because I'm concerned with the Stars' depth, both offensively and their defense depth. And the bold prediction of the series is that both backup goalies are seen throughout the series. And last but not least, Central Division 2 seed Winnipeg Jets against the Central Division 3 seed St. Louis Blues. This is the best series of the first round as the Jets have been very good all year and the Blues had a remarkable turnaround to get to this point. The Jets are loaded offensively, led by Mark Sheffley, Blake Wheeler, Kyle Connor, and Patrick Laine. Their defense is very good, led by Jacob Trouba, Tyler Myers, Dustin Byfuglien, and Josh Morrissey. Connor Hellebuck didn't have a great year in net, but he is reliable. The Blues' offense is great, led by Vladimir Tarasenko, Ryan O'Reilly, Braden Shen, and David Perron. Their defense is very good, led by Alex Pietrangelo, Vince Dunn, and Colton Parayko. Jordan Binnington has been a revelation in net, and Jake Allen has the playoff experience too. That said, I don't trust Binnington when the lights are the brightest, and the Jets have home ice advantage, so I like to win an absolute classic series. So the prediction, Jets in 7 games. Best player in the series, Mark Sheffley. The wild card, Patrick Laine. Laine's been down this year, and it's been pretty disappointing. He only had 50 points this season in 82 games. And the bold prediction of the series is that Jordan Binnington does not replicate regular season success, as you'll see a lot of Jake Allen in this series. Let's go to the second round. Projected Atlantic Division title, or right to the conference final, Lightning Bruins. Lightning obviously loaded offensively, and their depth defensively is pretty good too. You have Vasilevsky, who's experienced in net. On the flip side, Boston, they have a loaded offense. They're finally healthy all around. Their defense is solid. The wild card of this series to me is Torrey Krug and Charlie McAvoy, because those guys, Krug's had a great year. McAvoy is somebody that's on the come, and if they can slow down the top guns on the Lightning, then that could be a more interesting series than you think. My prediction of the series, Lightning in 6 games. Metro Division, right to the conference final, Capitals and Penguins. We all know the depth of both of these teams offensively. Defensively, you got Ovechkin and Crosby in their rivalry, Malkin, Kessel, Kuznetsov on one side, and then the other side you have Backstrom and Kuznetsov and Oshie. And in defense, you have John Carlson, who's great for Washington. And you have Chris Letang, who's been awesome for Pittsburgh. The wild card of the series is Brian Dumoulin. If he's back for this series and healthy, then this should be a coin flip series. But my prediction of this series is Capitals in 7 games. Western Conference, Pacific Division, right to the conference finals. You have the Flames and the Golden Knights. Flames, I talked about their offense and how it's loaded with Gaudreau and Tkachuk and a bunch of those guys they have there. Their defense is pretty good, obviously, with Giordano and all those guys. And then Golden Knights, obviously, they have their good offense with Marshall Salt, Carlson, Pacioretty. Their defense is pretty good. Nate Schmidt and Colin Miller. Also, Shea Theodore. Wild card of this series to me is the goaltending duo of David Rittich and Mike Smith, and whether it can hold up for yet another round. Guess what? Upset special. Golden Knights in 6 games to go to their 2nd straight conference final. And in the Central Division, right to go to the conference final, you have the Predators and the Jets. The Predators obviously are pretty good offensively with Forsberg and Vrietson, Johansson, but the Jets are much better offensively with Laine, Sheffley, Connor, and Wheeler. These teams are even on defense. You have Trouba and Bufflin and Morrissey on one side, and then you have Subban and Roman Yossi, Ryan Ellis. The best player in this series is Sheffley. But guess what? I'm taking the Predators in 7 games to get revenge on the Jets. I just think the defense depth of Nashville is the difference here. And I trust Rinne more in a big spot than Hellebuck. Although I don't feel good about what I just said. And by the way, best player in Capitals, Penguins, Crosby. And the best player in Flames, Golden Knights is Johnny Gaudreau. And the wild card of Predators, Jets is Laine again to see if he can replicate the guy who he really is rather than the guy we saw this year. Conference final. Lightning, Capitals. Rematch from a year ago. We all know both teams are great offensively. I think the Lightning defensively are a little bit better with their depth, although Washington has more depth this year than they have in the past. Holtby's now proven in big games. Vasilevsky's great in big games as well. The best player in the series, you could argue Ovechkin all you want, but 128 points is hard to bet against, and that's Kucherov. And the wild card to me in this series is Dan Girardi and Anton Strawman. Both these guys are veterans and haven't really been healthy, especially Strawman, who is missing game 1. If both of those guys can shut down the secondary scoring on Washington, and I think they're in great shape. And my prediction of this series is Lightning in 6 games for them to get back to the Stanley Cup Final for the first time in 4 years. Western Conference Final. Predators, Golden Knights. Both of these teams are solid offensively. I talked about all the big names at Forsberg and Vritzin, Johansson, and on the other side you have Pacioretty, Carlson, and Marchessault. Defensively, obviously, the Predators have the more depth outside of those guys like Yossi and Subban. They have Ellis. They have Elcombe. Golden Knights defensively, Schmidt, Theodore, Miller. And then the goalies, Fleury has a lot of the experience and is better in big games than Rinne. But Rinne isn't bad either. The wild card for me in this series is the duo of Shea Theodore and Nate Schmidt if they can shut down the Predators' offense. The best player in the series is Philip Forsberg, and I'm taking the Predators to win this in 6 games to go to the Stanley Cup Final for the second time in 3 seasons. So, my Stanley Cup Final from the East, the Tampa Bay Lightning. From the West, the Nashville Predators. This is such a great series on paper. You have the loaded offense in Tampa, a loaded defense with Nashville, a defense that is very good with depth-wise with Tampa. Nashville's offense is solid, but it doesn't match the power of Tampa Bay. The best player in the series is Kucherov. The wild cards to me, again, the duo of Stallman and Girardi. And if they can shut down the secondary scoring of Nashville, then obviously Nashville's in trouble. And then obviously you can make a case for the wild card of this series being the depth defensemen on Nashville, such as Ellis and Elcombe, to shut down the secondary scoring of Tampa. But to me, the difference in the series is Vasilevsky over Rinne in a big spot. So give me the Tampa Bay Lightning in 7 games to win their first Stanley Cup since 2004. My Conn Smythe Trophy pick, though, Steven Stamkos. It's been a long journey for him. Everybody knows that he was dealing with some stuff the past couple years. He's had a phenomenal season this year, and I think he's poised to have a big playoffs. And before I go to part 2 of the podcast, I want to give out my regular season awards. The Hart Trophy, Kucherov. I've talked about him all podcast long. He's a great player. He's in his prime. He's the best player on the Lightning, and he should win this award going away. 128 points is nothing to sneeze at. The Vezina Trophy, Darcy Kemper from Arizona. He's been rock solid this year. for the Coyotes and helped them stay in contention throughout the year, especially after Antti Raanta got hurt. It was a career year for Kemper, and I think he's deserving of this award, although this was a very tough award to pick. Obviously, Binghamton led the league in goals against. You have the Islanders duo, which was great, and some other candidates as well. The Norris Trophy, I'm going to go with Brent Burns of San Jose. I believe he had the most points among defensemen this year, if I'm not mistaken, but he was certainly great for San Jose this year, and he's very deserving of this award. The Calder, I'm going to give it to Elias Pettersson, even though Vancouver is not a postseason team. They're a team that's on the come because of Pettersson, although an honorable mention goes to Binghamton here. The Jack Adams Award's a slam dunk for me. Barry Trotz, he took over a team that lost its best player in free agency, and nobody expected them to be in the playoffs. I think a lot of people thought they were a last-place team before the season. Trotz deserves all the credit in the world. He's gotten a lot out of his players, and here they are with home ice advantage in the first round. And some honorable mentions, obviously. Claude Julien, even though Montreal didn't make the playoffs, but they were in it until the very end, and they deserve a ton of credit for that. I talked about the Coyotes a minute ago. Rick Tocchet also deserves credit for the team's success this year. Bill Peters in Calgary, nobody thought that they were going to be the 1 seed before the season. And then some other coaches deserve some love. Obviously, John Cooper with tying the regular season wins in the NHL history. He had 60 wins, so obviously credit for that. And then obviously somebody that also deserves a mention is Rod Brind'Amour, who took the Hurricanes to the playoffs in his first season, ending a long playoff drought for that franchise. And last but not least, the Selke Award, Patrice Bergeron. He's just a solid two-way player for the Boston Bruins. He should be a candidate for this award every year. Honorable mentions go to Jonathan Taves and Jamie Benn and Tyler Seguin and William Karlsson as well. Next up, part 2, featuring ESPN's John Buccigross.